Outside, the air is much colder than the freezing point of seawater. Wind scrapes across sea ice and hard-packed snow. A person alone in this open space would not last long. Yet only a few steps away, a low white dome stands still in the storm. Inside that dome, a family sits without heavy movement, speaking quietly, their hands bare for a moment as they eat. The walls around them are made of snow, the same material that covers the empty plain outside. The only flame is a small lamp of seal fat. The question hangs over every breath in that space. How can a house built from frozen water stay warm enough to keep people alive through an Arctic winter night? The usual picture of safety in the cold is a heavy building with thick walls, a strong stove, and a pile of fuel. Most people imagine stone, concrete, or processed insulation as the only serious defense against deep winter. In the Arctic, many Inuit families had none of this. There was little or no timber. Firewood was rare and had to be saved. Temperatures could fall far below zero and stay there. Still, they managed to create shelters where children could sleep, clothes could dry, and food could be warmed. The answer was not a large fire or a modern heater. It was a set of precise choices about snow-shape air and fat refined over generations. This story follows one simple question from the title. Why does an Inuit snow house built from the cold itself not freeze inside? To understand the shelter, the environment has to come first. Winter in the Arctic is not just low numbers on a thermometer. It is long darkness, often many weeks with no direct sun. The horizon is low and wide. Wind has room to gather speed across sea ice and open snowfields. Fine snow grains travel in the air, driven along the ground, cutting into any exposed surface. The cold is dry. Metal becomes dangerous to touch. Breathing in too quickly can sting the lungs. There are no forests to break the wind, and very few natural windbreaks at all. On some coasts, there are low ridges of snow and ice. Elsewhere, the land is a flat sheet. Travel during this season is work. Sled runners and boots must slide over surfaces that can change from soft drift to hard crust in a few steps. Animals that provide food move with the season. People must move too. A fixed heavy house is not practical. The shelter has to answer several problems at once. It must be warm enough for rest and sleep. It must be possible to build with the materials at hand, snow, ice, some stone animal skins, and bone. It must go up quickly, often in a single day, and it must handle not only cold air, but also the force of wind and the weight of falling and drifting snow. Now imagine the same night from inside a human body. A hunter has been on the land all day. Every step pushes against wind. Moisture freezes on his eyelashes. When he stops, his own sweat becomes a risk. If his clothing cannot release moisture and trap air, ice will form close to the skin. Fingers stiffen first, then toes. Fatigue encourages mistakes. A simple slip while cutting snow can mean a cut hand. A delay finding shelter can mean frostbite. For children and elders, the margin is even thinner. They cannot keep moving through the night. Their bodies have less reserve heat. Without a reliable warm place, their sleep becomes shallow, broken by shivering. Over time, that lack of rest weakens everyone. Food is also at risk. Frozen meat is easy to keep but hard to eat. Tools and clothing need to be dried. Damp boots and mittens fail quickly in this climate. A good shelter must solve all of these at once. It has to be warm enough to allow stillness, dry enough to protect tools and clothing, and stable enough to resist storms for days on end. For Inuit families, the snow house became that tool. A snow house, often called an igloo, does not start with any snow. It starts with the right snow. Builders look for a wind-packed layer that is dense but not solid ice. This layer is strong enough to cut into blocks with a snow knife and light enough to lift. Each block contains countless tiny air pockets frozen in place. That trapped air is the key. Air that cannot move becomes insulation. Blocks are cut into rectangles and set in a ring on the ground. Each block leans inward slightly. The second course is cut with a bevel so that the wall begins to spiral and curve. With each new ring, the curve tightens. The structure becomes a self-supporting dome. No central pole is needed. The weight of the roof pushes the blocks together. The joints are staggered, so there is no straight line from inside to outside. Small gaps are filled with loose snow, which freezes into place but still holds air. The entrance is never a tall open door. Instead, builders make a low tunnel that slopes slightly downward from the main floor. Cold air sinks. By lowering the entry, that cold air is trapped in the tunnel. Warm air from bodies in the lamp rises and stays in the main chamber. This simple shape turns the entire house into a kind of thermal trap. The floor inside is carved into platforms a little higher than the base of the wall. People sleep and sit on these raised ledges, often covered with caribou skins. The coldest air stays lower in the trench and tunnel. At the top of the dome, a small vent hole is left or created. This vent lets moisture and some warm air escape slowly. The balance is careful. Too large and the interior loses heat. Too small and moisture condenses and drips and smoke from the lamp gathers. The only flame is usually the quillic, a shallow stone lamp fueled by seal or whale fat. Its flame is wide and low. It gives off steady heat and light but does not throw sparks. Together with the heat from several bodies, this is enough to raise the interior temperature well above the outside air. In steady conditions, the inside of a snow house can hover around the freezing point or a little above, while the outside may be far below. Clothing completes the system. Parkas, trousers, and boots made from caribou and other furs trap still air in hollow hairs and layered skins. Inside the igloo, people can loosen or remove outer layers to dry them. Their bodies continue to emit heat and moisture. The snow walls absorb and refreeze a portion of this moisture, slowly hardening. Over time, the inner surface can glaze slightly, but the core remains full of trapped air. The house becomes more solid without losing its insulating core. The moment when the design proves itself is simple. A storm rises in the night. Wind speed increases. Snow begins to move in thick sheets. Outside, the air grows even colder. There is nowhere to go. Yet inside the snow house, very little changes. The wind does not grip the dome. It slides past. Snow piles against the outer curve and over the roof. Instead of being a threat, that extra snow layer adds more trapped air and more insulation. The entrance tunnel may partially fill, but the main chamber stays clear. Outside, a thin-walled structure with large flat sides would lose heat quickly. Any small crack would become a path for drafts. A large fire would be needed to push back against that constant loss. In contrast, the igloo reduces every path for heat to escape. No glass, no tall open doors, no exposed metal. Only a small vent at the top and a low tunnel near the base. The house does not fight the environment with force. It reshapes the flow of air and temperature so that the family's own heat plus a small flame are enough. That is why in deep winter, an Inuit snow house does not feel frozen inside, even though it stands in a landscape of ice. This system did not appear in a single season. Knowledge built slowly. Families watched how different snow types behaved under weight. They noticed that blocks cut from wind-packed drifts held better than loose powder. They learned how much to tilt each block so the dome would close without collapse. Builders understood where to place the house in relation to prevailing winds and the shape of nearby drifts. Many accounts describe how elders passed this knowledge on directly, not in abstract rules, but in hands-on work. A child might begin by fetching blocks, then by filling gaps, then by cutting and placing the lower courses under guidance. The same is true for the use of the quillic. Its stone had to be shaped so fat burned steadily. Wick material was arranged along the edge to give a clean flame. Too little fuel and the interior cooled and dimmed. Too much and soot and moisture built up. People adjusted the flame in response to frost on walls dripping or coughing. Clothing patterns also evolved through practice. The double-layer caribou parka with fur facing inward in one layer and outward in another is an example of silent experimentation over generations. Each change in cut or seam that improved heat retention or drying would be kept. Historical and anthropological studies describe regional variations in snow houses. Some had side chambers for storage or sleeping. Some linked several domes with tunnels. Others combined snow walls with skin roofs in different seasons. Still, the core principles stayed stable. Use snow with trapped air. Shape the shelter to reduce wind load. Create a cold sink near the entrance. Raise the sleeping level. Use one small steady source of heat. This was engineering work conducted without written plans, guided by close observation of snow, sky, and breath. The storm outside reaches its height. The wind is now a steady roar. The snow house is almost buried. Inside, the sound is muted to a constant low rush. The stone lamp burns with a short, steady flame. A thin line of smoke and warm air climbs toward the vent and disappears into the dark. Children sleep in a row on caribou skins. An elder adjusts a boot and sets it closer to the warm side of the wall. Frost crystals form in a thin band near the vent and hold their shape. The family's breath rises and fades. The dome of snow does not move. This is one way people learn to use cold material to stay alive in a colder world. If this kind of quiet survival engineering draws you in, there are more stories waiting in the next winter camp.